What's up, guys and gals? Welcome to the Nerd Castle for the next episode of our weekend review. I mean, it's kind of, as you can tell, my house is sort of in chaos right now. This is actually officially the final video that we will ever do at this house. The next time you see me, like next week, it will be in a totally different location. The architecture will be different, hopefully more awesome is what I'm really hoping for. But as of right now, there's really nothing going on for me. Honestly, I've had to cancel the last couple streams, and so that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about in this weekend review, because I did want to apologize to my stream viewers. Unfortunately, up until the 25th when I move, my streaming schedule is really hectic right now, and so unfortunately it's not something that I'm able to kind of pull together just with the amount of busyness going on at the moment. I have been just constantly, either if I'm not moving, then I'm recording like 15 episodes at a time because I'm like trying to front log so that for a couple days I don't have to work after I like move into the location so that I can get all my stuff set up. So right now is very busy for me, like as a human being, not as like a YouTuber, but as a human. Things are a little bit different at the moment, so let's get to the weekend review. I'm going to skip Alien Isolation. I feel like you guys already know how I feel about that game. The schedule's getting a little busy right now, but it should clear out fairly soon. We'll go to Crown Takers next. Crown Takers sounds pretty good, and Crown Takers is a game that this week you'll see. We're getting closer to beating it. I think in the next 5 episodes I make it to the final boss, but I haven't beaten him yet, so that series will be coming to an end probably in the next week or so. I like the game. It's still very RNG laden, but I am still enjoying the gameplay when my veins aren't popping out of the side of my head from being angry at missing 98% swings and things like that. So it takes the good with the bad when you play RNG related games. Some of the newer bosses near the end of the game are sort of unique, and in fact they throw you kind of a couple curveballs in there, but I think we'll be able to manage it once I started to max out characters. You'll see once we start uploading episodes, but I start maxing out characters, and it makes them a lot more efficient. It makes them a lot better than they initially were, so that's always good. So that's where we're at with Crown Takers. Other games that we have going, Jagged Alliance, I'm kind of in a weird spot because I should hesitate to say that. Jagged Alliance Flashback is in a weird spot because, honestly, it's kind of hit the same point that Warband hit, where I'm playing like 3.5 hours in between each episode, just like defending the same spot over and over again. So I may let that one just kind of like teeter out. We've already conquered like half the island anyways. It's already basically coming to its conclusion. I've got the achievement for doing all the side quests, even though we're only on like episode 12. So I don't know if that's a bug or if there are seriously only like 3 side quests in the entire game. I'm not really sure. I suppose I'll try and figure it out later, but Jagged Alliance Flashback, I like the game, but I think given the huge amount of time that passes in between each like major thing that you accomplish, it's not necessarily like super conducive to an online playthrough, especially since right now I don't have time to like play 3 hours in between each episode. I would rather, if I'm doing that, I might as well like mash out something for like This War of Mine. This War of Mine is going very well. That is the game on the schedule right now that I cannot sing enough praises of. I think that once you figure out how the game works though, and you've got metagame knowledge, it gets too easy. That's what I'm starting to, even this is like my first playthrough, and by like, well, I'm not going to tell you how far we get, but anyways, by the point that I'm at right now, I'm starting to figure out how all the systems work, and once you learn that you can like exploit things, and you can use sounds to draw people out and stuff like that, you start to become just like a murderous killing machine, and nothing can stop you. I think that there are some surprises coming in the next couple episodes. We definitely hit a rough point, and you'll see, but who knows what comes after that. Other things that we're working on the channel right now. Well, Mordheim released this week, and that's actually a game that I'm very surprised about. In fact, that game took me totally by surprise. When I booted it up and played it the first time, I was like, damn, this was not at all what I expected to play. I thought that it was going to be something like really primitive. I thought it was going to be like a board game, basically, like playing the original Space Hulk. It was Space Hulk, but it's a board game. When I played Mordheim, I found myself actually being impressed by the fact that it's competent both as a tabletop game and also as a video game, which is a very hard line to walk. It's a very good recreation from what I've seen now. I went online and I started watching videos of people playing actual Mordheim. It's a little bit different from what I understand now, having watched it, but at the same time, seems like a pretty decent translation. I'm a little bummed out that orcs aren't in. I have to point that out right now. If orcs aren't included, I am bummed the hell out. I mean, how are you going to have Warhammer Fantasy without orcs, developers? How are you going to put in Chaos first? Come on now. They're spiky, but they can't keep it real like the orc boys can. Got to get us in there with some goblins, like something going on. We need orcs. We need orcs. They're in Warhammer Fantasy, and they are adversarial, and I feel like if you're going to put Skaven in, I feel like orcs were a foregone conclusion long before Skaven. So I really like Mordheim. I can't wait to see what updates bring. I can't wait to see where it ends up. I'm not really so stoked about playing other players in it, so I am more or less looking forward to the single player aspects of the game. But once they start releasing the campaigns where you can like swap gear out on people and actually choose loadouts and actually choose your warband from the ground up, so you can have like 3 ogres if you want, and then they just have to make like dumbness checks every turn. Like basically once I can customize my warband to be whatever I want and put whatever gear on them that I like, I will be just happy as a clam. And I heard, you guys taught me the second half of that statement right there. Happy as a clam in high tide. I think that's the second half. Because I was like, why are clams like inherently happy? They're like little goo balls that live inside of a shell. If I was a clam, I don't even think I would be intelligent enough to know that like I am a clam. You know, ooh, that sounds like that right there. That sounds like some cutting edge hipster poetry. The poem would be called I Am the Clam. It's kind of like I Am the Walrus, I guess, but I Am the Clam rhymes. So there are things there to be pondered. As for things that are coming out right now, honestly, we start Eternal Winter. I actually just uploaded Eternal Winter right before I started recording this, and I like Eternal Winter. I think Eternal Winter is a cool game, and I'm excited about playing it for all of you on the channel. It's another survival game akin to The Long Dark. It's a lot more primitive right now, though. If you haven't seen the video yet, I highly recommend you check it out, because it's the first dog sledding game that I've ever seen. So you are a dog sledding survivor. It's you, your 4 dogs, your sled, and your house. And essentially you're in this world that's like supernaturally locked in winter or something. I'm not really sure if it's going to be a supernatural explanation or if it's going to be like a nuclear winter. They haven't really explained yet. The developer hasn't. But it's developed by one guy. Thus far, it's actually got a lot of the same feeling that Unturned has, but it's a lot more primitive than that too. I think that what he's got going right now is basically just like proving that he has a game, that he has the idea done, and he's put in like the basic mechanics. And so now I think he's putting it up on, I almost said on YouTube, but anyways, he's putting it up on Steam to kind of see if he can get enough money to finance the game, because I suppose what he said anyways, or what I read, is that he's working by himself on the game, and I think he's probably working another job right now. The game is something that he's just working on in his free time, and I think he's trying to move over full-time to game development or something and, you know, flesh the game out. As of right now, you can play it for a good 4 or 5 hours before you run out of stuff to do, which for a tech demo is impressive. I mean, I've played games that were calling themselves like Alpha 0.5, you know, instead of Alpha 0.1 or whatever, that had less content. So I play a lot of games, and Eternal Winter kind of struck me in the same way that Salt did. Now, it's not quite once again, it's not as developed as Salt. Salt is still miles ahead of Eternal Winter, but given the concept that they have in Eternal Winter, they really have the opportunity to make a game where, for the first time in a long time, since maybe like Fable 2, where, and I think I just spit all over my camera. Oh well, hopefully that doesn't show up in post. If it does, only the best from Splattercat. Anyway, that's why they call me Splattercat. There you go. I speak like Elmer Fudd, just spitting all over the place, maybe like the Tasmanian Devil. But I am excited about Eternal Winter because it's like the first game since Fable 2 that gives players control of a group of animals, and these animals are responsible for your survival. Without them, you aren't going any further. I felt that way about my dog in Fable 2 as well, and in Fable 3. I really loved... Do we have a dog in Fable 3? I don't remember. Maybe it was just Fable 2. It's been a long time since I've played any Fable game, which is weird considering I always say that Fable 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. I may actually play that on the channel someday. If I ever had like a Dead Space where I can put in an older game like I did with Sid Meier's Pirates, I may do a playthrough of Fable 1 because I really, really do sincerely love Fable 1. After that, I'm kind of, I like Fable 2 more than I like Fable 3. Fable 3 was by far the worst of the three. And so considering the games keep getting worse as they step through the series, I think that, you know, whatever the new Fable is going to be, I don't have much hope for it. They keep stepping away from RPG and going more towards just like action-adventure game. And so I don't really like what they've done with it. But Fable 1 and 2 I enjoyed. Fable 3 I enjoyed, but I didn't feel like it was Fable. I did like the storyline, though. Everything else was kind of iffy, but... Anyways, I felt the same way about my dog in Fable 2. And in Eternal Winter, they have the real chance, and he's already putting in, like, emotes and stuff for the dogs where they react to the different things you do, and... I'm excited to see where it goes. I think that the survival genre is really, really impacted right now. And I think that it comes down to, do you have an interesting idea for your game? And I think the dog sled turn is a very, very interesting thing to play on. And I sincerely hope that the developer focuses more on the dog aspect than he does on the scavenging aspect. So the scavenging aspect is fine, but in my opinion, it's been done before. There are other games that do scavenging and surviving far superior in far superior ways. I think that the dog sledding part, though, giving the dogs maybe different personalities that you can allocate at the beginning, kind of like a create your own dog RPG at the start, where different dogs will need different amounts of different dogs will need different amounts of attention based on their personalities. So obviously the alpha is going to try and keep the others, and you have like, maybe they could have interactions between the dogs as well, where, you know, this one is very clearly, he becomes the alpha over time, but you've got to kind of keep him separated because sometimes he like bite the other dogs and stuff like that. I mean, I watched Les Stroud's episode of Survivor Man where he had the dog sled, and the one thing I took from that is that dogs, like with dog sleds, spend like 80% of their time just fighting with each other, and so they seem to be fairly aggressive, and they seem to have a lot more of those wolf-like instincts that kind of cause them to compete with one another and get angry at each other for not doing their jobs properly, which I always thought was interesting. Like, the lead dog will get mad at the dog behind him because he's not pulling hard enough and the sled is kind of veering, and that dog knows he's going to get in trouble, but he knows it's that dog's fault. It's very interesting how dogs lock into those sorts of things. Very, very intelligent the way their little pack society works, and if he works that into Eternal Winter, it's a very, very large menu. But I sincerely, sincerely hope that he focuses on the dogs rather than the survival. The survival can be passable, but the dog aspect, I think, is what really, really sets this apart from The Long Dark, for example, or really any other survival game where you start out, you just got to gather stuff and then just build things to live as long as possible. And so that's one of the reasons why I am excited to see Eternal Winter. Space Hulk, Space Hulk, Space Hulk, Space Hulk. So Space Hulk, little disappointed that I couldn't beat that mission, but God, that mission, I beat my head against that for, I don't even know. I started recording at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 8 o'clock at night, I still was just banging my head against that mission because I get really, really kind of like, I wouldn't say I get angry and frustrated. I get hyper-focused, like I have to beat this. Once I realize, so the first couple times I get beat, it's because I didn't expect it to be a challenge, and I kind of took it like half-heartedly, and I'm just kind of playing while watching a movie off to the side. And then once I start like getting my ass kicked over and over and over again, you know, you sit up in your chair, you're like, I have to beat this. I can't let the game win. And that mission in the Space Wolves campaign, I'm still not sure it's winnable. I mean, if any of you have beaten it, it's called Clear the Way. If you've beaten it, then let me know, because I need hope right now. I need a pep talk because we had to switch campaigns. I also think that the game auto-levels the Tyranids based on the level of your Space Marines, which I didn't notice before. Because the first time I played my Ultramarine campaign, when they were all level 1, there were no special Tyranids for like the first 5 missions. But when I took the Space Wolves over to the Ultramarines campaign, there were special Tyranids starting in like the second mission all of a sudden, where we were getting Broodlords and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it is my estimation that the game has some kind of inherent auto-leveling that goes on to keep the challenge at a certain level, and I think that might be over-tuned slightly. There is simply no way that a 5-man squad of Terminators can beat 3 Broodlords that are spawned in one turn from the same direction, essentially like a room away from you. Like, if it happens, it's RNG and you're done for. And so I was frustrated with that mission, and I thought for a while, like, I was frustrated. Well, I don't like banging my head against something that I don't feel like is winnable. And from that mission, it plays like a 10-man mission, even though it's a 5-man mission. And so I decided the best way to keep the series going was just to walk away. We'll go play another campaign until I inevitably get stuck there, maybe. And then I'll probably, like I said in the 9th episode, I'll probably make it like an off series that I do like once or twice a week, maybe. But it'll probably, because I have a schedule. We're going into Christmas season. There's all kinds of stuff that needs coverage. There's all sorts of things that I want to hit. And so it'll probably go into being an off series. Salt, I'm pretty much done with Salt. I think you'll forgive me. I'm a little bit clumped up right now. Well, maybe that's not I'm full as hell. I just went, so I'm moving in 2 days. And so I went to my favorite Mexican restaurant that's here I went to my favorite taqueria, and I just pigged out because I knew it was like my last supper. Like, I was never going to eat there again. Like, pretty much I can virtually guarantee you I'm never going to eat there again. And so I ate so many fajitas. It was ridiculous. I went big on fajitas with the guacamole and oh man, it was everywhere. I embarrassed myself tonight. And so right now I'm still attempting to recover. And I feel like there's a brick like right here, and it's not going to move for a while. I only ate dinner like 30 minutes ago. You know that feeling when you're still stuffed in the morning when you ate the night before? Like, it's the Thanksgiving feeling. You ate the night before, and then you get up the next day and you're just like, I'm still full. I'm going to go lay down. I'm pretty sure I'm going to feel like that tomorrow. But the packing is moving. Things are going on. I totally ate there. But anyways, how did I get off subject right here? Salt. pretty much done with Salt. We've got about, so episode 7 went up today on Salt, and I think I've got it recorded up to like episode 12 or 13. And whereas we haven't collected like all the uber elite gear or anything, we've started to do some of the major stuff in the game. And so I think that one will probably make it 15 episodes. I'll probably record a few more episodes and try and get some ancient armor and try and get maybe the moonstone ore sword or whatever. But once you get to that point, we got to wait for more developments. I mean, that's pretty much it, unless you want to go sail island to island looking for like the boss pirates, which are essentially the same as the normal pirates, except they hit a lot harder. So I feel like we've pretty much, in about 15 episodes, I feel like I've hit Salt about enough. I think we could call it to a close and not feel particularly embarrassed. I have like the second best sword in the game at this point. I have like the best bow in the game since like the first 5 minutes we were playing. Really, really good armor too. So there's more adventures to be had though. You'll see. There's also a vote to be put up with Eternal Winter. If you watch the first episode of Eternal Winter, I was totally serious when I wanted you guys to, or never mind, it's in the second episode. In Eternal Winter, I want you to vote for the president of the dog sleds. Even if the series ends after like 4 episodes, I'm still going to elect a president. We will announce it. Feel free to send me promotional posters that you might want to make, like art promoting each dog. I'm really excited about this idea. I don't really have any magical things to like distribute in return for like people electing a dog president, but we're electing a dog president. Like, how professional could this get? We're choosing one of our 4 dogs to be the president over all the others. But yeah, Salt I'm pretty happy with. Salt is about where I expect it to be. I mean, Salt is kind of in the odd position where, once again, I've got a lot of sandbox games going right now, and so I have to set sometimes arbitrary limits on where the series goes, because it's just like there are so many games coming out right now, and I want to cover all of them, but I don't want to cut it too short either, because that's always been kind of my thing here at the Nerd Castles. I always try and finish stuff that I start, and right now I feel like I'm kind of in this weird I feel like I'm in kind of this weird in-between period right now because I'm moving and so many things are going on. Basically, I'm stressed. So I think I'm going to let it like next Wednesday, once I get done moving into my new house and everything, and once the stream has like settled its schedule and everything, I'll start thinking about what I want to do with each of these series. I'm pretty sure Alien Isolation is going to be over in 2 or 3 episodes. I actually looked up where I was in the game. I didn't look up what was ahead of that, but I looked up what chapter of the game I was in, and it's the second to last. So we should be done with Alien Isolation pretty soon, but it's a long game. It's a really long game for a horror game. It keeps going. You expect it to like end at various points, and it just keeps going. So that's pretty much about it that we have going right now at the Nerd Castle. I don't think I've forgotten anything. I think I got everything on the list. There's probably not going to be a bunch of impressive editing right now for all this, although I did have a couple things I wanted to talk about. I've been filling out because I never have ideas for what I want to talk about on my end of the week type thing. Oh, yes. Okay, so there's the Battle of Brothers going on right now. So at the moment, you can look this up. I think you'll be able to find it easier on Twitter maybe. I'll see if I can find a link for it, and I'll put it in an annotation or something. There's a contest going on right now between 2 brothers to see who can make the best game in 1 year. And I stumbled across this on Twitter, and both of the games they're working on look pretty cool. Like, one of them's got like a Banner Saga thing going on where the artwork is just like gorgeous. And I was like, you did this all by yourself? Like, seriously? It does not look like a one-man operation. And then I was like, all right, so he's clearly winning. And then I went and looked at his brother's project. His brother's killing it too. Both projects look pretty awesome. And so if you want to check that out, I'll try and get a link for it. So the Battle of Brothers, I think they're taking... So basically the way that it's decided is they're going to make a press demo, basically, or like a proof of concept demo. They're going to release that, and they're going to Kickstarter it. And whoever raises the most money wins, and then I think they will swap all the funds over to the other. I'm not really sure. Look into the specifics. I shouldn't say anything specific about it, but I think maybe it's the one that grosses the high. I think they're going to kickstart it, and then they have 1 year to develop from the time the Kickstarter goes through or something like that. I should have gotten the details down better, but either way, I've watched a bunch of documentaries this week, so I wanted to talk about that briefly, although really this is going to bore most people. I watched a documentary from the BBC about Victorian pharmacies. And what I came to learn from this documentary is that basically during that time period, opium fixed everything. Like if you were sick, opium. Opium with some arsenic in it or something. Opium. Like it seems like they were going through the different cures and everything had opium in it. And that is because opium will get you high as hell. So I got the feeling that Victorian people were probably domed out of their skull at least like 90% of the time. And if it wasn't opium, it was probably like laudanum or something like that. I think that was what Edgar Allan Poe had a problem with. He was always doing laudanum. He was always like destroyed out of his mind. Although if you go back, and I think that when you read Sherlock Holmes, he had a cocaine habit, didn't he? I vaguely remember reading about I think he used to inject cocaine in the books, but because it's like a period piece, they're like, everybody did cocaine back then. They didn't consider it a drug or anything. They just got like, it fixes stuff. My nose is runny. Better do some cocaine. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That seems like a little bit of an overstep. I mean, you could just get a hanky. Dude, my nose is running. I'm going to go do some cocaine. Be like, wow. All right, well, go for it, man. I mean, if you want to spend the rest of the night feeling kind of energetic and focused out of your mind, I suppose that's fine. I also watched a documentary called, this was a good documentary, actually. I really, really enjoyed this one. I like anything that comes from New York, like in the 60s and 70s, like basically before the city tried to clean itself up for tourism. So basically, if you've ever seen The Warriors, I like that period of New York City history where it was like dirty and grimy and just kind of like hell on earth. I don't like the fact that it was like that, but I like things that are set in that New York City world. And I watched a documentary that was made back in the 70s. It was called 80 Blocks from Tiffany's. Was that the name of it? Let me see here. Yeah, 80 Blocks from Tiffany's. And if you want to check out the documentary, search it on Reddit/r documentaries. It's one of the default hubs, or one of the default subs. I don't know why I said hubs instead of subs. I'm on Reddit like all the time. But anyways, it's on the documentaries. Search the documentary posts, and it's called 80 Blocks from Tiffany's. A fascinating documentary about two gangs that are just like all the gangs from the Warriors in the 70s, and it was filmed in the 70s. And basically it's the two groups of gang members with like their gang colors. They had one called the Savage Skulls or something like that, and they had like this weird biker sort of stormtrooper type thing going on where they used to buy surplus like German helmets from World War II and wear those. Lots of kind of weird Nazi imagery and stuff like that, even though they were all like, I think they were, I think they were, I don't remember. Everybody in the gang, I think, was, well, I don't remember. Everybody in the gang was from a particular place. I can't remember if it was from Puerto Rico or if it was from, I think it was probably Puerto Rico, but don't quote me on that. Go watch the documentary for yourself and you can correct me. But it was a really good documentary. And then they had another gang from the South Bronx, I think. And that, oh God, I don't even remember what they were called, but they were also sort of like a biker type thing that they had going on. But it was really kind of interesting. They had like these whole costumes and everything that they would walk up and down the street, and they got in serious like knife fights and stuff like that. Like they looked like they were dressed up for some kind of like heavy metal concert or like some kind of costume party or something. And I never realized, I mean, my dad used to tell me that like the Warriors is kind of based on truth. Like gangs were super goofy and stuff like back in the 70s. Like they all had like dress codes, and it wasn't like it is nowadays where they just wear like a colored bandana or like, you know, a sports team's jersey that's the color of the gang. Back then it was like a full like regalia type thing. Like you put on your colors like it was a full outfit. You know what I mean? You had to get dressed properly before you went out to rumble. They had a section about how they would get into a rumble with one of the other gangs from New York City, and if they beat them, they would take all of their colors off, like all of their kind of top rockers, bottom rockers, their little leather vest things, and they would hang them up from a street wire that went across the entire street, and they would leave it there. And if you were from the gang that they had defeated, if you were badass enough to climb up the walls of the apartment or the projects and grab your colors off there, they would let you leave. They would fight you all the way there. Like you had to fight your way through them to go get your colors. But if you could get your colors like in your hand, they would like let you leave as like a sign of respect. It was a very, very interesting documentary about sort of early. It's almost kind of reflective. I guess it's like the last hurrah of sort of the. Well, I don't even really like West Side Story. Like you have the Sharks and you have the Jets, and they both have like the way that they dress and the way that they look and the colors that they wear. I think that 70s documentary is kind of showing that last hurrah of that old gang culture, and I find that to be really interesting because it's something I've never truly followed. I like New York during that time period, and I really like movies that are set in that time period, that dirty, gritty, steamy New York City. But it was a good documentary. That one I would actually highly recommend. The people in it are not nice people, though. Like, the people they are interviewing are some serious hardened criminals in a time before the RICO statute went up. And so basically they just had plausible deniability for all the terrible stuff that they did because there was no like street surveillance or anything back then. And so you had guys who had done some super serious crimes and just never got caught. And in fact, somebody on Reddit has said that they had seen another video with the guys that were in the documentary that checked in on them now in 2010 or something like that, and where are they now? And all of them are like family men and stuff now. It's like the weirdest thing ever. He said it was a strange juxtaposition how they're all like normal nowadays 30 days later, because you wouldn't expect them to live that long living in that violent subculture. He was like, you don't expect any of these guys to survive the age of 30. I mean, and sure enough, 30, 40 years later, they're able to check back in and be like, oh yeah, I'm still alive. He's still alive. It was a phase of our lives. Very, very interesting. So check that out. 80 Blocks from Tiffany's. Very, very cool documentary. I'm also reading right now, and in fact, I was going to bring the book in here, but unfortunately, my reading list, not for the week, this is actually a fairly beefy book. It's called Under the Loving Care of the Dear and Fatherly Leader, or something like that. It's a book about North Korea, but it's like that thick. So I was going to say it's my book of the week, but it's totally not my book of the week. It's probably going to be my book of the month and a half or something, because frankly, I've been working, probably 10, 12-hour days every day now for 5 or 6 days straight. I've been really, because of the move, I'm trying to front load so that I don't have to work on the days that I'm moving. And it's been a lot. I've definitely been buckling down. So the time that I've had for reading has been non-existent. It's been a little bit skimp, but I've had time to go and pack the house up, and honestly I feel like we're doing pretty well right now. But that's pretty much it for me right now at the Nerd Castle. That's going to be our weekend review. Let's take a look and let me see if I've got any Q&A questions here on the last video. The Q&A questions I try to answer. I kind of sabotage myself with the Q&A section because I answer them too, like in the comments, but I will reiterate them here for anybody that didn't go back and kind of read the responses. So, are you going to play multiplayer Don't Starve? Honestly, I would have to find a spot to fit it in, and right now we are just so ridiculous. We have too many series running right now. I've kind of dug myself into this weird hole, and I'm working like around the clock to try and like get myself out. I think we're running like 6 series right now, and the thing is, within like 5 episodes, I think like 4 of those series are going to be done. So Alien Isolation is going to be done really soon. Jagged Alliance is going to be done really soon. Mordheim is done really soon. Eternal Winter's done really soon because there's not enough in either of those last 2 games to really do more than 2 or 3 episodes. And then after that, Crown Taker should be done really soon. So I'm going to have this really weird spot where I have no space for like the next week and a half for anything. It's just totally impacted right now on my end with my schedule. But I'm going to have an equally weird period right after that where like all my series expire at the exact same time and finish. It's going to be very, very... I also think... I'm pretty sure that this War of Mine's going to be over pretty soon too. I'll leave that up. You guys can see. There's still a lot coming. There's still a lot coming. I'll assure you of that. It is not within a week of being over. I'll tell you that much so that you can have an idea how far out I've got it recorded. I did this time. I let it go up to the final episode, and I read all your comments along the way. And so with the episodes that I recorded today, I recorded 5 or 6 episodes today, and they went really, really, really well, like insanely well. I'm so happy with where our little colony is. We hit a couple bumps in the road, but I tried to implement the suggestions that you guys threw out because it seemed like you all had some really, really good ideas. And so I tried to make those work. And in fact, one of them kept us alive. Actually, one of the suggestions saved our lives, and you'll see which one it is. If I hadn't actually taken that comment to heart, our entire group would be dead right now. And so very, very good advice from a number of people at the Nerd Castle. Have you ever played Brotherhood of Battle? I have not. I actually haven't even heard of it, so I'll check it out tonight. How's that sound? Nice guitar you have. What is it? Well, I answered this one in detail down there, but it's a Epiphone Les Paul that I got back when I was younger. And so I got it when I was probably 15 or 16 for a steal from Guitar Center. It had a busted knob on it, and so they sold it to me for like chips, like nothing. Its MSRP was like $1,000, $1,200, and I think I got it for like $150 or like $200 or something like that. I was able to basically, because they just didn't want to fix it or something, I'm not sure. It had a busted knob, and it took me seriously 3 hours one afternoon to rewire it and solder it back together with my dad's help, because my dad used to be a machinist, and so he's like a wizard with soldering and also with welding and things like that. My dad can like solder something so perfectly on a motherboard that you can't even tell that it was ever soldered in the first place. Like, that's what he used to do for a living. He used to work at a machine shop where he soldered motherboards for washing machines all day. People would send in busted washing machines, and he was in charge of putting the electronics back together. And since PCB boards were really expensive back in the, I guess, early 80s or whatever, like the normal motherboards, it was better for them to fix them and like solder all the parts and just put like new nodes and headers and all that random stuff on it than it was to give a new one. You might as well like buy a new washing machine if you were going to do that back then. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I thought about upgrading to a Gibson, but right now I'm not focusing on music enough, I think, to justify the purchase. It's a lot of money for that sort of thing, and so I would rather focus. Music was my career, but now YouTube is what I'm doing to kind of bring home the rent. And so I would rather put myself 100% into YouTube than go after something that kind of I've backlined. I have been playing guitar. I hadn't played guitar for probably 4 or 5 months. And last week I picked it up and started playing scales and, started dusting up. And it's actually fairly remarkable. Your fingers remember really quick. But then again, I played guitar like 8 hours a day from the age of 13 on until the age of about 22. So I've played it so much at this point that it's like my calluses are gone though. I didn't play for 6 months. And that's the funny thing is my calluses went away. I have no calluses on my left hand anymore. It actually hurt when I played guitar, and I was like, wow, that reminds me of being a kid. It's actually a little bit interesting. So it appears like I'm going to have to re-earn my calluses, which will be a nostalgic experience going through that again. Do you play Final Fantasy XIV? I heard you mention it in a video. I did. Final Fantasy XIV is one of those games that I dearly, dearly loved. I really did. I felt like the rebuild of Final Fantasy XIV, even slightly before they relaunched it for the PS4 crowd or the PS3 crowd, they fixed it so well. Like, I've never seen a company retrofit a game so completely in such a small amount of time. They realized what happened. They realized they put out a bad game. They admitted to it. And for once, they said to their fans, we're going to fix this. It'll take us a while, but please forgive us. Come back and check in a year or two. And while it burned people like me who bought Final Fantasy XIV on launch day, I was so impressed with the way that they had fixed the game when I went back to play it again like a year and a half later. It isn't even the same game. It's completely different. They reworked everything. And I do like Final Fantasy XIV, but if I'm playing MMOs, I have a severe addiction to MMOs, and I'm saying that seriously. I'm not being like sarcastic right now or ironic. I have over 280 something days played in World of Warcraft alone. I have an insane amount of time played in Star Wars The Old Republic. I'm the kind of person that when I play MMOs, I sabotage everything in my life over it. I get way too into it, and I care way too much about like achievements in the game. Like, ooh, I cleared hard mode. Bro, I'm on a guild that was number 17 in the world for this dungeon. Like, I care too much about that kind of dumb shit, and I tend to sabotage myself. So I tend to be very, very careful about MMOs nowadays because they almost ruined my life when I was 19 or 20. I destroyed everything in my life over World of Warcraft. I mean, everything fell apart. I was unemployed. I gained like 100 pounds. It was bad. It was really, really bad. And so I tend to be a little bit careful with MMOs because I have a predisposition to overdoing it. Just like somebody that had a problem with alcohol needs to be careful around alcohol. I do the same thing with MMOs because I very sincerely do believe that I had a problem. I would have given up like anything back in the day just to, attend a raid and things like that. And I think that that's a bad mindset to be in. Real life, just because you wish that the world was more fantasy based doesn't mean that you can exist in a fantasy world. And I think that's what it was for me. I think that when I was a young adult, like after I graduated from high school, I was really, really disenfranchised with the world because that was right when the United States, our economy just like crashed right when I graduated. So there was no jobs, there was no anything. And I was sitting there, 19 years old, filling out job applications all day, every day, not being able to accomplish anything, not being able to start my life off. I was always kind of frustrated because like it seemed like my dad's generation was able in the 70s to jump straight out of high school, and it was like you had a union factory job like a day later. And it seemed like it seemed like people then had such a leg up in like starting their lives off and, achieving the middle class goal. And just graduating when I graduated, it's like there was the expectation that I was supposed to be successful already based because the generation that came before me was able to jump straight out of high school and like do not important things, but do things that, it was organized labor. It was, real union labor. There was factories everywhere where I grew up, and nowadays there's none. All the factories are gone. There were 6 or 7 factories within 10 minutes of where I lived when I grew up, and everybody worked at them. Everybody. I would say 75% of the population all worked at one of those factories, and then they closed down over the years. And so the opportunities I always felt was different. And because of that, I kind of like gave up hope for a while, and I decided that I was going to live in a fantasy world instead of living in the real world. And that's what happened. I decided I was going to exist in World of Warcraft. And so that's kind of like a background for why I don't play MMOs. I know it was a bit more verbose than the simple question of, do you play Final Fantasy XIV? But I wanted to give you instead of giving you just like a terse no, I wanted to give you kind of a background there. And it's funny, like the second I stopped playing World of Warcraft, I had full-time employment, I had a job with benefits, I was, a successful individual, like the moment I stopped playing MMOs. And so you don't get indicators like that very often in life where it's like black and white, where the day you stop doing this and you swear it off, everything from there just gets better. And so I think I did. I think I had a very, very serious addiction, and I had to put it behind me. I get friends every now and again who try to tempt me, and they'd be like, hey man, you should come back to World of Warcraft. Like, just take it slow, just like don't let it get too crazy, you know what I mean? And I take it very, very, I haven't resubbed to anything lately. I think the last thing I played was, oh god, what did I play last? Darkfall, Unholy Wars. I played that for a couple of weeks, but I only played it like an hour or so a day. Before that, I was playing Eve a little bit, but once again with Eve, I saw myself getting a little bit addicted to it, to where I was playing it way too much every day, and I was backlining my video editing, and so I started to notice the same things that I used to do, and so I had to say, okay, let's just cancel the account. This is my, yes, I see people are asking about my No Shave November progress. It's definitely, you can't really see it, but I've got about an inch of hair. The problem is that it's like red blonde, and so unfortunately, unless the sun hits it, you can't like really see it. It looks kind of darker right here, but when I go out in the sun, it's bright red. My beard is super, super, super red in the sun. So it's kind of, I don't know. It's not that it's thin, like, it's just like, it's super long. It's starting to get in my mouth when I eat and stuff. It starts to like curl over on the side. I'm just like, I still kind of can't wait to shave it. I like sideburns because it's like having like a half beard on the side of your face, and it poofs out this way, so it never quite gets in the way. But then again, people look at you kind of funny when you have giant sideburns too, but I don't care about that. I rock the Wolverine. I represent. I told my girlfriend that I was going to shave it right here, and I was going to let it go like handlebars all the way up and around, do like a Morgan Spurlock thing, but I probably won't. I'm not brave enough. Let's see here. What did you think of Timber and Stone? And do you think that you would be putting up a series anytime soon? The second half of that, no. We will not be doing Timber and Stone anytime soon. That would be one of those things that I would probably throw up on the internet as a backup series, like Sid Meier's Pirates. And so I tend to save games that I like, but they aren't quite where I want them to be yet. I tend to save those things and keep them kind of in like this little mental stack. And the first thing I do is I reach into that stack when nothing is coming out for a few months, and that's where I get my games from. That's what I did with Red Faction Guerrilla. That's what I did with Sid Meier's Pirates, because we had like a very big dead zone in the middle of the summer where like nothing came out. Everybody released in June, and then after that it was like no games came out. So I tend to save stuff. Did we get ported? Oh my god. Yeah, the next question was, did we get ported to Chino at some point? Is this a how-to for home break-ins? You're dressed like a crack dealer and everything is black and the room is trashed. I had my street clothes on. I was going out hard, but my house is tore up right now because, as I said, I've been moving, and so everything looks like a crack den at the moment. Everything's like in boxes, and there's trash and stuff all over the place. I'm not looking forward to moving. It's gonna be awful. What do you think about shilling on YouTube channels? That's kind of a loaded question, I think. The wording on that, so I'm gonna make this a little bit more descriptive. So what he means by shilling on YouTube channels, I think, is taking paid advertisement gigs. I have been approached for those, and I actually wanted to talk to you guys about it because I wanted to make sure my community was okay with it before I did it. It's one of those things where I wanted to check in and I wanted to get people's opinions. I was approached by an MMO a week or so ago, and they wanted to pay me to do a series on their game. I made it abundantly clear to them that I will not have what I say about the game be censored, and they said they were okay with that. Like, I wanted to be free to critique the game as I went through. Like, that's fine if you want to pay me to do a video, and I think it's fine that if YouTubers get paid to do a video, but one, the first thing is, it is illegal in the United States, and I would assume most other first world countries, to take a paid advertisement gig and not admit it at the outset or somewhere inside the video. So for example, if I took one of those gigs at the beginning of the video or anywhere inside that video, I have to confess to you, the viewer, that this is a paid product placement. I have been paid to represent this product, and I have to tell you that. You will actually get criminal charges for that if you do not do it. It's bad business. It's considered to be, and in fact, if you don't tell people that you're getting paid to do stuff like that, it is very, very dishonest. And so I think that there's room for it on YouTube as long as you're representing a product that you do legitimately like. The second part is you need to follow the letter of the law on that. You need to confess both to your viewers and you just need to put it in the video that you have taken a payoff in order, and that sounds kind of bad. You have been paid to make this series. It's not shilling, it's how business is done. I mean, that's why, CNN runs advertisements for Tide bleach. That's kind of how the world works. It's almost like an endorsement deal. I've been offered one, and I expressed my opinion about it, but I did want to ask you guys how you feel about that at the Nerd Castle, because I will absolutely turn it down if it's not something people are comfortable with. I don't really have any strong feelings about it. I would, right at the beginning of the video, I'd be like, hey guys, they approached me to make a video series on this. I am being compensated, and then I would go from there. But I would never, ever take a paid product placement where I wasn't allowed to speak my mind about the game. That's where it crosses the line, because I'm not going to deceive my viewers like that when I think there are people that take my opinion to heart when I vouch for a game. And whereas sometimes I get it wrong, we all do, sometimes I pick a bad game and I vouch for a bad game, I still catch flack for Ghost Ship Armageddon or Ghost Ship Aftermath or whatever, but I legitimately enjoyed the game. I don't care that people think that I was paid off for that series or people accused me of being illegitimate. I liked the game, and so I was going to play it on my channel. I pointed out the flaws of the game. I didn't hide any of the bugs. I pointed out the things that bothered me, and I called them out, but I still enjoyed the game in spite of those faults. The point at which a developer approaches a YouTuber and says, listen, like what WB did with the new Middle-earth game, Shadows of Mordor, very, very, very skeevy what they did. They said, you may not cover our game unless you promise not to say anything bad about it. That right there is censoring public opinion, and that does not create a good arena for the discourse of the art form that is video game design. It's just, how are you going to absolve yourself from being critiqued? That seems like a tremendously illegitimate thing to do. All filmmakers, all people that create something, including myself, we leave ourselves open to criticism. My one rule, people can criticize me on the Nerd Castle. My only thing is don't use harsh language and don't swear at me and don't call me names. That's really the only two rules that I've ever banned anybody for in the Nerd Castle. You can critique me. You can be like, I feel like you talk too much. You can be like, I feel like I don't like you as a human being. That's cool. It might hurt my feelings slightly because I'm the kind of person that likes everybody to like me. Like I'm a social person who really likes it when, other people get along with me. I like things to be smooth and solid. But the point at which you become that guy who's just like, this is not acceptable, nobody's allowed to say anything about me that I don't like, I just keep it to don't call me any names, don't swear at me, and I'm not going to ban you. But you can say mean things about me as long as it's worded nicely. As long as you word it like you're from the 1800s, I'd be like, that was a well-contrived burn. And so I think that what WB did in conscripting YouTubers to censor their opinion about the game, even though people came out and said, oh, I haven't censored my opinions. Yes, you did, because they would have pulled your video had you not. That's in the contract. It said from WB, if you say anything bad about our game, we will pull your video in a heartbeat. We will give you a copyright notice. That's not okay. That's either give people, it's got to be blanket. You can't be like, some people don't get copyright notices because we're friends with them. Some people do get copyright notices because they're actually legitimate critics, and so they're going to grade our game. It's one of those frustrating things, but I think that as long as you're honest about the fact that you've been paid for a series that you make, and two, as long as you maintain your credibility, I won't say as a journalist, because none of us have journalistic, sometimes people will be like, you're such a good journalist, and I really try and cut that off at the head, because I'm not a journalist. I don't have a degree in journalism. I've never studied journalism in my life. I don't know anything about journalism and ethics. I don't know anything about journalism and honesty. I don't know anything about journalism and writing. I'm an amateur commentator. This is what I do on the internet. I have no professional medals or accolades that say that I'm qualified to do this. People just take my credit for, or take my word for it on a lot of stuff. And so I try to be very, very careful when people say stuff like that. And so if you're sacrificing your credibility as a commentator in order to get a couple thousand extra views on a popular game, and if to you it's okay to flip around your opinion and just not say something bad about the game, I think there's really something ethically that you need to think about right there, because you're probably persuading a lot of people to go buy the game if you're saying nothing but glowing things about it. And chances are, for example, I got the new Middle-earth game and I didn't particularly like it. I thought it was easy mode, I'm not going to say it was garbage because it was a fun game, but it was super easy mode. Like, it was a game that basically you could play with like one eye shut and the other one squinting while watching a movie. Like, you didn't really have to try in that game at all. It kind of won for you most of the time. So that was my big problem with Middle-earth and why I didn't think the $60, $50 AAA fee was worth it. But, what do I know about anything? Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see here. I don't know how you do it. You upload at least one video every day. I try to do YouTube and have trouble trying to get myself to upload once a week. Maybe it's because I get 6 views a video compared to your couple 100,000. All right, well, here's what I'll say. I already answered this comment, but I'm going to answer it again because I think it's a big deal. A lot of younger YouTubers, and I mean young as in your channel size, like your channel is smaller. It's got like 500 subscribers or whatever. A lot of them email me and they have the same question, like, how do you do it? I'm going to tell you this. Don't try to be somebody else. The number way you can sabotage yourself is by trying to be somebody else. And I see far too many YouTubers that are more interested in being Markiplier, or they're more interested in being PewDiePie, or they're more interested in being Chugga Conroy than they are in being themselves. Number one, you've got to stay true to you. Your personality is much more interesting than you emulating somebody else's personality. And one thing I always tried to stick to on YouTube is to be me. I never wanted to do Markiplier can do Markiplier. PewDiePie can do PewDiePie, and I bear them no ill will whatsoever. Both of them, they do their job. They make content that is digestible to a lot of people. It entertains a lot of people. It's mostly aimed at younger demographics, but it is what it is. I one time heard somebody say, I heard a critic one time say that Winnie the Pooh, the movie, was juvenile, and I was like, it's a kid's movie, man. What did you expect it to be? I feel the same way when people say that PewDiePie and Markiplier are juvenile. Yeah, that's who their content is geared for. I promise you, if they ever release their metrics, I bet the number one source of views for them is between 12 and 15 years old. I almost guarantee it. Almost guarantee it, down to the point where I'd put money on the table. They know their demographic, and they work towards it well. And so what I will say is don't try to be somebody else. I think the Nerdcastle is successful because I've got an amazing community that's cultivated around this place. There is no replacement for a group of people that will represent you to others and vouch for you, and that's something for which I'm tremendously appreciative. The second part is that I've never wanted to be anybody else on YouTube, aside from maybe Jeff Major. No, I never wanted to be anybody special on YouTube. I kind of just wanted to play games, and if people liked my personality and people wanted to come hang out for 30 minutes a day, they're welcome to. I made videos first and foremost for myself, to represent myself. And so I see so many YouTubers out there. I don't know what your content looks like. I haven't looked. But the other thing, I don't get hundreds of thousands on every video. I get about 10,000 on a really, really good video. But you come a long way. I started out getting 6 views on a video just like you did. Go watch some of my older videos. I started at the bottom. Everybody starts at 0. And YouTube is an endurance race. So be yourself and hang in there. Stay on the ropes. Don't allow yourself to tap out, because the longer you do YouTube, the better you will get at it. The other thing is to study. Treat this like an avenue, like you're going to college to learn to YouTube. Study. If you want to be a funny channel, read books that were written by Johnny Carson's writers. Read books by the writers of Seinfeld. Read books by people that made their living writing jokes and being funny. If you want your videos to be serious and contain a whole lot of information and just really expose a game for everything in the background and in the foreground, do that. But bring your own personal twist to it and study for it like you're actually going all in. There's so much work involved with YouTube, and I know it's hard. Like if you've got a job and you're trying to YouTube on the side, I understand. It's very, very difficult because I was there too. When I started YouTube, I was going to school 9 hours a day. It was my junior year, the middle point of my junior year when I started in college. And I was an older college student. I went to college in my middle 20s. And so I understand completely, but get that hustle. You know what I mean? Try really hard. Get that one video out a day. Just do it for you. If you're not going to do it for anything else, don't look at the view counts. Don't look at the likes. Don't look at what people say about you. Produce that one video a day. And I've never seen anybody who didn't get better at it over time. I have a natural advantage at this, and that's what I have to admit to people is I worked in radio. I've worked in public speaking. I know how to talk to people, and I know how to keep my thought process rolling because I've been trained to do that. So I have a leg up. And so a lot of people look at what I do and they go, I could never do that. Just understand that a lot of people have put a lot of time into giving me the skills that I have that allowed me to do this right here. But you can do it too. If nobody else in your life believes in you, I believe in you. I've never seen anybody. I know a lot of LPers, and I've never seen anybody that has gotten worse after their 1,000th video. They may still have 65 subscribers. For whatever reason, things may not have worked out for them. But I've met guys with 100 subscribers that are the happiest people in the world with just that little community that they have because they make videos for them and not for other people, if you understand. Like, other people can get enjoyment from your videos, But YouTube, for me anyways, is how I self-actualize. I mean, this is like something that I really care about, and I make videos for me. I do it because it's my artistic outlet. It allows me to have fun every day. It allows me to, pay my bills on top of that. And when you're not getting paid to do it, I understand it's hard when you've got like an 8-hour a day job and then you're producing these videos that you feel like nobody is seeing and nobody cares about. I've been there. That was that was my first year or so on YouTube. I've only been doing this for a couple years, but I got very lucky in a lot of ways, but you can treat YouTube like Warhammer 40K. Yes, a lot of the game is luck, but you can hedge things in your favor. Learn search engine optimization. Get that one video a day done. Just stick with that and just hang in there. YouTube is more of an endurance race than anything. If you make videos long enough, you will develop a community slowly. And if you're not, then my suggestions would be to figure out search engine optimization. It's called SEO, and it's very, very important to growing a YouTube channel. A lot of people don't like to talk about the business aspect of YouTube, but as from where I'm sitting, I feel no reason to censor information about how I got to where I am. I'm fairly positive that I could help other people, with just tips and things like that. And so the number one thing I would suggest you learn is called search engine optimization. And it's tricks and tips for how to get your videos to show up on YouTube. Like when somebody searches Mordheim, how do you get your video on the front page? There's a very, very formulaic and mathematical answer to that question. And it's actually not that hard. It'll take you a couple months worth of practice, but YouTube is a trade like any other, and you've got to learn sort of the ins and outs of it as well. So hang in there. I understand where you're coming from. We all started from there. From PewDiePie. PewDiePie started from big goose eggs too. Everybody did. And look at where he is now. If you stop trying, you never know how far you're going to make it. I've thought about quitting YouTube dozens of times because I was frustrated. I felt like nobody was watching. I felt like my video sucked or whatever it was, and I'm being totally barefaced honest with you right now. You can do it. Hang in there. Don't doubt yourself. The artistic process is riddled with self-doubt. I've never met an artist who didn't hate their own work. That in and of itself is how everyone feels about what they create. To this day, I'm not happy with a lot of my videos. I wish they were better. I wish they were funnier. So still release the video, but try to take it to that next level with each one that you make. Even if you don't get any credit or attention for it, just do it for yourself. I promise you'll have a lot more fun. Just do it for yourself. Don't do it for the growth. Don't do it. Just make a video every day for fun. And, study the other things in the meanwhile that help grow a channel, like search engine optimization, little things like that. Things that help grow a channel while you have fun doing it. Because in the beginning, when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't even know for the first 6 months that you could even earn a paycheck on YouTube. I made videos for 6 months, seriously having no idea that you could get. I thought people just made YouTube videos to make YouTube videos. And then I found out later when one of the networks contacted me, they're like, hey, we want to have your channel as part of. That's another thing. Watch out for networks. Watch out for networks. If they shake your hand, count your fingers. Maybe I'll do a video of YouTube advice later on, because I do get a lot of questions like this from people who are frustrated and they feel kind of downtrodden and beaten. So maybe I can help. Maybe I'll think about it. I'll see if I get a little bit of time once I move, and maybe I'll try and make a how-to YouTube type thing where it'll be like a no bullshit, no excuses, like this, and this. And it's going to be honest. Some people may not like how honest it is, but I'm going to try and be as honest as possible that if you want to make a bigger... Yeah, I think it sounds like fun. It might happen. I don't want to get into it right now. Are you going to play Massive Chalice? It might happen. Massive Chalice is looking pretty good. Massive Chalice, I like where it's at right now, but I'm not sure it's quite ready for a series yet. I don't know. I'll fiddle with it. Have you ever played Pathologic? Nope. Never played Pathologic. I looked it up, though, after you posted that. Skola Saha. After you posted, I looked it up on Good Old Games. It looked interesting. It looked pretty interesting, actually. And it seemed to have... I noticed it had very, very polarized reviews. Like, there were zeros and there were maximums from people that are like, this is the worst game ever, and people these were like, this is the best game ever. There was very few middle ground people on there, and I tend to like games like that. Games that, by and large, other people didn't like. So, like, Divinity Ego Draconis. Like, people really kind of shit on that game for a long time, but I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool for what it was. At least it wasn't trying to be anything else. It was unapologetically trying to be Ego Draconis. So I think that's about it for all of our questions. Oh, how many games do you have, may I ask? Well, given that I just packed them up, I've got a pretty good count. I've got 50 or 60 Sega Genesis games because Sega Genesis is my one and true love. I have always been a Sega Genesis collector. I will always be a Sega Genesis collector, and I go through phases where I just bomb out eBay, just buying new Sega Genesis games that I'm probably never going to play. I mean, I barely have any time anyways, but I just love the Sega Genesis. I always have. I grew up with one, and it was my console. You know, I feel like an ownership of the Sega Genesis that I have friends who are like that with the Super Nintendo, too. I have friends who are like that with Pokemon. I have friends that are like that with Digimon and things like that, where, like, this is, like, their thing, and it's what they were really into, like, their entire life. And so that's how I am with Sega Genesis. PlayStation 2, so the consoles I have right now, I have an NES, I have a Sega Genesis, PlayStation, I have like 4 PlayStations. I don't know how I have so many PlayStations, but I think like half of them are broken or something. I've got a PlayStation 2, I've got a Dreamcast, I've got an Xbox One, and that's it right now. Right now I'm debating going and getting a PS4 or an Xbone, but haven't really decided yet. That's more so that I can cover like Ubisoft type stuff as well, because Ubisoft only really kind of gives games to console players, and it's become a little bit of a frustration to me because I want to review things like I want to do things like Far Cry 4 and review them and things like that, and I can't because I can't like get the games because they only give them to console people. So that I have an ulterior motive in getting a next-gen system, but I also kind of want to play. I have a lot of friends that have Xbones and PS4s, and so I kind of want to get back into social gaming with my friends now that I'm moving back home. So for each of those, I would say I sold a large portion of my PlayStation collection. I only kept the Holy of Holies there, so I only have about 15 games for the PlayStation, and those are like the ones that I knew were irreplaceable, like things you couldn't get anymore, like Legend of Legaia, the pre-bestsellers Platinum Edition, so the original edition of Final Fantasy VII. I have Final Fantasy VIII still. Final Fantasy... I think I don't have Final Fantasy IX because I didn't like it. I think that's one of the ones that I traded in. But yeah, I've got a lot of really like niche games for the PlayStation that you can't get anymore. Like a lot of really random, but I only have like 10 or 15 games for the PlayStation. Oh, Grandia, that's another one. Grandia, which is in my opinion probably the best JRPG ever made. Grandia was simply fantastic. To this day, Grandia still stands head and shoulders above most other JRPGs, which is sad considering it came out like almost, 15 years ago? So anyways, I only have my really, really sacred games for the PlayStation. The PS2, I've got like all kinds of stuff. The PS2, I went through a phase where I just like mass consumed games, and I just have so many random, just terrible games for the PS2 that I just picked up for like $1.50 at GameStop. I went there and I'd be like, oh, it's $1.50. What do I have to lose for $1.50? This is pre-Steam. And so I've got a ton of PS2 games that I don't even know what I have for the PS2 anymore. The NES, I have probably 25, 30 games for. I've got a pretty good selection of NES games. I've got a lot of the classics, and then I've also got some kind of random weirder games that I picked up over the course of time. The Dreamcast, I got the Dreamcast for free from a friend of mine who thought it was broke. He said it was broken, and if I could fix it, I could have it, and so I fixed it, and now I have it. I have a Dreamcast. I've got Crazy Taxi, I've got Echo the Dolphin, and I've got... What else do I have for the Dreamcast? I have something else. Crazy Taxi, Jet Set Radio. And then, or Jet Set Radio, I don't know, whatever. It's the one where you've got like the weird rocket skates and you graffiti all over everything. I've got that, but everything else the guy was really big into burning games, and so he has like 500 bootleg copies of like everything. I haven't managed to work my way through them yet. It's just a lot. It's a lot of stuff to deal with. I need to get a Sega Saturn at some point. I really want a Sega Saturn because I grew up playing a Sega Saturn too. My friend had one that lived next door, and so we played a lot of Sega Saturn, but don't have that one. On the Xbox One, I've got quite a few Xbox One games, actually, surprisingly. Saying that I don't play a lot of console games, I was actually going through my collection. I do have a lot of, I would say I've got, for the PC, I can't even give you a rough number of PC games I have. I think I have something like, God, because I get press copies of things, developers just send me games and I activate them, but then I don't get a chance to play them because they just load my inbox with these games. I try to hit them all, but it's just like it's so much that you couldn't feasibly cover it all, and they send it to you unsolicited. Like, I don't even ask for most of these games. They just email you free keys. And so I've got so many random little $4 games for Steam. I'm somewhere. Let me look at my Steam stats here, actually. Let me take a look and let you know. Because I have 450 Steam games. Like, I don't even know what percentage of those I haven't even played yet. I try to work my way through them. I have a list that I follow, and I like go game by game, and I've played a lot of them, but still, I'm not even most of the way through the list because I just don't have free time anymore as an adult who, YouTube is a job for me. I work at 8 hours, 10 hours, 12 hours like anybody else does their job. The only difference is it's kind of like self-employment for me. The only way anything's going to get done is if I do it myself, and so if you got to work that 12-hour day, you got to work that 12-hour day, and that's just the way it goes. My dad is self-employed too. For actually the back half of his life, I guess he's been self-employed, and I have a newfound respect for what he did, because working for yourself it's a trial sometimes. Definitely trying to get your priorities straight. And if you don't do it, nobody will. It's not like somebody else is going to pick up your slack like they would have back when I used to work at, Best Buy or whatever. If you screwed something up, sure enough, somebody come pick up your slack, or you were picking up somebody else's slack. So 450 games on Steam, that's not counting my box copies. I think I have somewhere around 100 box copies of PC games, because PC gaming is my true love after the Sega Genesis. I've been collecting PC games since probably around 1999, 2000 is when I got into PC gaming. And when I was a kid, I spent the majority of my allowance for my chores and stuff just buying PC games. When I got my first job, I spent almost all my money buying PC games because I was in high school. And then I've always gotten a lot of I've always bought a lot of PC games. I really enjoy PC gaming. Every now and again, I get stuck on a game like Warband, where I play it an inordinate amount of time compared to everything else. But PC gaming is where I think I've easily probably got about 550 PC games, including my Steam list. But the box copies, it took me, just to get my game list, just to get all my boxed games into boxes, I think it took me 5 or 6 boxes to get them all in. The collector's editions don't help because they're that big and they don't fit into anything, but what are you going to do? So anyways, that's my best guess. That was a tricky question, so I figured I'd throw it in at the end. I hope you had fun with this weekend review. This was one of those ones that actually went a little bit longer than I planned. I look forward to seeing you all in next week's review. We will be at a new location, a new Splat Cave, if you will. I will see you all there. Hi do, everybody.